Have you ever made a beautiful big zoo in Planet Zoo sandbox mode, but at some point your zoo is just lagging so much and it has such low FPS that you really are not able to continue your zoo anymore and enjoy it? Not even when you have your game on pause mode all the time? Well, join the club. Because this is exactly what happened with my city zoo, and now after only a few hours of making changes, I was able to go from 9 to 10 FPS when the game was paused to above 30 and sometimes even above 40 FPS, which is such an insane improvement. When I upgraded my computer last year, I noticed barely any difference with my city zoo, and I honestly was so disappointed because I really was hoping that my upgraded computer would really be able to handle a zoo like city zoo a lot better. Unfortunately, there maybe was like 1 or 2 FPS performance boost max, so yeah, this definitely was the biggest reason for me to never return to the zoo anymore, because with only 9 to 10 FPS in pause mode, it's just super slow to build anything in the zoo, and it just looked terribly laggy as soon as I would unpause the game. It really just wasn't any fun at all. So I am obviously extremely happy with this insane performance improvement, and I would love to share these top 5 tips and tricks with you all, so this will hopefully also improve your big zoos so you're actually also able to finish it. So without further talking, let's go and jump into this top 5 tips and tricks video of how to get a better performance in your big zoos in Planet Zoo. So the first thing I would advise you to do is close down your zoo or minimize the amount of guests to like 500 people, for example. So you can close the zoo right over here in the zoo overview. Just click this button and then it will be closed. And if you have guests in your zoo, they will all go to the exit and go away out of your zoo. And if you want to minimize the amount of guests, you just go to your settings and then sandbox, guest settings, and then limit the amount of guests right over here. And then you can just slide this one to how many guests you want to be in your zoo. So when you have too many guests still walking around in your zoo, just make sure to close your zoo and reopen it when your zoo reaches the amount of guests that you want to be in your zoo. Closing your zoo or lowering the amount of guests should already help to get a bit better overall performance of your zoo. Not that long ago, we actually had an update to Planet Zoo, in a free update I should say, that you are now able to toggle climbing for certain pieces. And not only for pieces, also for buildings. So I would highly recommend you to just go over your zoo and either just click a building, for example, and you will find it climbing enabled to be green, and just turn it off for any building that you can find. Now, these are all piece by piece, so you can do this by hand, but you can also, like, if you are sure that there's not a habitat with a certain climbing animal, because that is obviously something you need to pay attention to, that the building is not connected to like climbing frames for some kind of monkey or like a primate, for example. So keep that in mind when doing this. But if you are sure that, for example, in this particular area, I do not have any animals that have a climbing preference or are able to climb in general, you can just select this with the multi-select tool you can find here at the bottom. And then you can see like there are some pieces in here that are climbable and there are pieces in here that are already turned off. And you can just multi-select this and then just turn it off all by one. And if you do this over your whole zoo, just go over all the buildings that you have, or do like a multi-select tool. Like for example, right over here, I have some climbing areas. So I should pay attention to the fact there's also climbing stuff on the inside. So preferably, I would not be going to this area and deselect it all to make sure that they're non-climbable. But you can obviously zoom in and just make sure that some pieces that are climbable but are not being used by the animals, to turn that off as well if you want to. But this can really help you with your game performance as well if you do this. What you can also do, but I actually do recommend doing this from the start already if you can, is managing your animals. Like how often did it happen to you that you were like building many habitats in your zoo, and then when you looked at your old tortoise habitat or peafowl habitat or monkey habitat or whatever kind of habitat, and they had about 50 babies and the habitat was crazy overcrowded, or like warthogs, for example. I can tell I had the same exact issue in this city zoo. Like, I turned out to have almost 800 animals in a zoo, of which many were like overcrowded habitats with bongos and peafowls and tortoises and warthogs. But also in general, like most habitats just had way too many animals in them. So yeah, in order to help your zoo performance, make sure to manage your animal population. So either you make sure that all your animals in your zoo get contraceptives. So you just select it right over here. You can select all the animals and then just give them contraceptives. Like this, they already had contraceptives here. But yeah, that is definitely a way to go for. Or you go to the animal settings right over here and then just make sure to, for example, enable or disable animal aging and birth. And you could also choose to do the enable death through aging option to have a little bit more of a natural flow, for example, through your zoo. But these are obviously optional, but just make sure to pay attention to this to your animal management. If you don't want to pay attention too much to your animals, I highly recommend you to just go for the animal contraceptives or just have only like one pair being able to reproduce so it doesn't go super fast, for example. If you still feel like this doesn't give you the performance you want, well, then just do what I did in City Zoo. I gave all my animals contraceptives and let the game run for about 2 hours on my computer on full speed mode, and then I deleted all the animals from my zoo. I know, it's a zoo game, and I'm building a zoo without any animals now. Yeah, well, this way I can freely build habitats again in City Zoo. And when the time is right and I have finished the whole zoo, I will make sure to add new animals in the habitats before I will do the last zoo tour. And make sure, of course, to give contraceptives or like pay extra attention to the animal settings when adding them. Like, honestly, words cannot even describe how happy I am that I am able to work in the zoo again, whether or not with animals. Like, obviously, when we will make new episodes again, I will be adding animals in for that episode, but I will just make sure to remove them again for the time being so that will not hurt my performance when the zoo is expanding. Now, I do have a little tip when doing this, because right now, okay, I think these guys, oh no, they're still not grown up. So I do have a few, I think I had like 25 or 30 tortoises in here, but they grow up so freaking slow. So yeah, that's why it's taking such a long time and I'm still not completely empty. But really a tip for me, if you're going to do this, and especially if you're going to select all the animals to just bulk delete them, release them in the wild or quick trade or whatever, I actually did remove one of my most favorite white Bengal tigers, and she was called Pearl. And yeah, it just happened by accident, and I was really sad about it until I realized that I still had, thank God they were babies, so they will not be removed, but they are still in the training center. So yeah, if you do have animals that you really don't want to be deleted, then you really have to pay attention to that and make sure that it won't happen. I think something like giving them a name, maybe with 111 or something like that, and just select it all first by name and then select everything and then deselect that certain animal you don't want to remove, something like that should at least help you to prevent, hopefully, that you will not be deleting any animals you really don't want to lose. But it would obviously be super nice if Frontier would be adding like a little lock icon or something like that. So whatever then happens, if you do a multi-select here and remove all the animals, that you will not be deleting certain type of animals. I actually did think something like that was already in the game, but I don't know. It probably is just a brain freeze because I couldn't find it anymore. But if it is in the game still, do let me know in the comments down below. But I don't think it is. But yeah, definitely some things to keep in mind. Like, did that ever happen to you guys that you accidentally deleted an animal that you really loved? Like, do let us know in the comments down below. Well, I'm just saying rest in peace, Pearl, because she was like amazing. And I know a lot of you guys that have seen my Twitch streams back in the days know how much I loved her and how happy I was with her. But yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. So the last tip I like to give you, even though it for some reason really doesn't have my preference, is lowering your graphic settings. Now, I always play on ultra settings myself, and my computer is able to handle this. But some computers are just not able to, and then you maybe have to try to lower the settings to get a better performance of your game. Like, I honestly don't dare to say what settings have a really big impact on the performance, so I think it's just best to try this out if you really get to the step that you really need to lower your settings. But it surely can help for some computers to get a better performance out of your zoo. So yeah, if all of the other things didn't work for the zoo that you really want to finish, but the performance is just too low, then I would recommend to just check out these graphic settings and see if you can just change this to something lower, and this maybe will give you a little bit better performance as well in your game. And then one last bonus tip, if you are one of those people watching right now with a potato computer and you in general have a hard time running the game on your computer or your laptop, I have heard a lot of really good stories about GeForce Now that many people with a bad computer are able to run Planet Zoo with GeForce Now. So I really highly recommend you guys to check that out if you in general just don't have a good running computer but still want to play Planet Zoo. And I would love to ask everyone watching right now that is using GeForce Now to play Planet Zoo to share their experience with us in the comments down below, because I do think that is going to be super helpful for anyone out there that is still having doubts of using GeForce Now or not on their computer. Oh, and for those wondering what computer I had before and after my computer upgrade last year, I know a lot of you guys will ask me about my PC specs. You can find more information about that on www.thelaydesigner.com. So definitely go there if you want to know what kind of computer I am using with these ultra settings. So yeah, these were my top 5 tips and tricks of how to get a better performance in Planet Zoo. Obviously, I would love to know if these tips did help you guys for your bigger zoos, and if you have any other tips or suggestions, definitely make sure to share them with everyone else in the comments down below. Leave a like at the video if you guys enjoyed, and subscribe of course if you haven't already. And yeah, I just really do hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye guys!